Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Steps for Filing Your Marks-Roos Yearly Fiscal Status Report, a webinar presented by the California Debt and Investment Advisory Commission. My name is Tara Dunn. I am the manager of Cdiac's Technical Assistance section. For the next hour or so, we will be presenting first an overview of the Marks-Roos Yearly Fiscal Status Report, then a walkthrough of how to submit the report through Cdiac's online platform, as well as a walkthrough of submitting a report for a draw on reserve fund, default, or replenishment, and then follow up with frequently asked questions we receive about these reports. And now on to a few housekeeping items to go over. The slides for today's presentation are available in PDF form in the Handouts section of your webinar control panel. After our presentation, these slides will also be available to download from our website. We encourage you to submit questions during the broadcast at any time using the box marked Questions near the bottom of your control panel. Any questions we receive will be held until the live question and answer session near the end of the program. Access to live captioning is available during the presentation at the address that you see on this slide. The link is also posted in the chat section at the bottom of your control panel, so you can copy and paste the web address into a second browser window. We will email certificates of attendance to those who participate in the webinar. To be eligible to receive a certificate of attendance, you must have personally registered and have remained logged in for 70% of the webinar. If you meet those two basic requirements, you'll receive a certificate in a couple of weeks. A replay and a transcript of this webcast will be posted on our website. Cdiac makes all of our webinars available on our website for replay and are accessible in our Media Library section on the Cdiac Education page. All the registrants will also receive an email with a web link to the replay and transcript once it is completed, usually within a couple of weeks. Finally, if you're having any technical issues, try the toll-free number 877-582-7011 or the link to GoToWebinar shown on the screen. Today's webinar will be presented by Nova Edwards, the manager of Cdiac's Data Collection and Analysis Unit. Nova was appointed as the manager of the data unit last year in December 2019. Prior to her appointment, Nova was a member of Cdiac's Policy Research Unit. As a research specialist, she authored many publications, including the series summarizing the results of bond and tax measures appearing after each election cycle, and she managed the annual update to the local agency investment guidelines. Nova has been a member of the Cdiac team for over 20 years and has an in-depth knowledge of Cdiac, its data, and the debt issuance database. As for myself, I was recently appointed in April as the manager of Cdiac's Technical Assistance section following Joyce Ward's retirement last year. Prior to this appointment, I was also a member of Cdiac's Policy Research Unit, conducting research and providing analysis and technical assistance on a variety of municipal debt issuance topics and investment-related topics, including K-14 voter-approved General Obligation Bond Authority, green bonds, securitized investments, and socially responsible investing. Before I hand it over to Nova, we have included a couple of snapshots of Marks-Roos issuance over a 20-year period, from fiscal year 1996-97 through fiscal year 2016-17. These figures on the slide include both new money and refunding issuance and show the highest issuance years as fiscal years 2006-07 and 2014-15. each totaling over $2.3 billion. Here's another look at the use of Marks-Roos bonds geographically by county. Soon, Cdiac will be publishing an upcoming article about this 20-year period of Marks-Roos issuance in our monthly newsletter, Deadline. So now that you have seen a quick overview of past Marks-Roos issuance in California, I'll turn it over to Nova. Nova?
Thank you, Tara. Before we get started with the steps to completing your Marks-Roos yearly fiscal status report, let's go over pertinent legislation regarding Cdiac's formation and the legislative requirements for filing different reports with Cdiac. In 1981, AB 1192 created the California Debt Advisory Commission, also known as Cdiac. Then later, in 1996, AB 1197 added investment to Cdiac, changing the Commission's name to the California Debt and Investment Advisory Commission. This was done because the Commission was expanded to include investments. Also in 1996, Government Code Section 6599.1 established requirements for issuers of bonds issued under the Marks-Roos Local Bond Pooling Act of 1985 to submit specific information to Cdiac on an annual basis and to notify Cdiac if there is a default or draw on reserve to pay debt service. And finally, under California Code of Regulations, Section 6050 through 6053, Marks-Roos yearly fiscal status reports and the Marks-Roos draw on reserve default reports were established as the reports to satisfy Government Code Section 6599.1. These sections also provide reporting requirements, define terms, and confirm acceptability of online submission to Cdiac. The information presented to you in this webinar has three parts. 1, Marks-Roos yearly fiscal status report. 2, draw on reserve default replenishment report. And 3, frequently asked questions. Part 1, the Marks-Roos yearly fiscal status report, will take a look at the overview of the Marks-Roos yearly fiscal status report, discuss the information collected, review the two types of yearly fiscal status reports, the authority and the local obligor, and show where to find the reports on Cdiac's website. If an issuer issued a Marks-Roos bond after July 1st, 1996, then a yearly fiscal status report must be submitted to Cdiac by October 30th of each year until the bond matures. Each year around the beginning of August, Cdiac sends a courtesy reminder to remind the authority or local obligor to submit their yearly fiscal status report by October 30th. The information collected in the Marks-Roos yearly fiscal status report is as follows. Principal amount of bonds outstanding for both authority bonds and local obligations with the proceeds of authority bonds, balance in reserve fund, cost of issuance including ongoing fees. Just to name a few ongoing fees, they could be accounting fees, audit fees, or fees to a county water district. We also collect the total amount of administrative fees and the amount of administrative fees charged to each local obligation. In addition, we collect interest earnings and terms of all guaranteed investment contracts, commissions and fees paid on guaranteed investment contracts, delinquency rate on all local obligations, and the balance in capitalized interest accounts. There are two types of Marks-Roos yearly fiscal status reports, one for authority issuers and one for local obligors. The yearly fiscal status report for authority issuers is to be completed by the Joint Powers Authority who issued the Marks-Roos bond and uses the proceeds from its bond issue to acquire, purchase, or transfer funds to a local obligor under a debt agreement. The yearly fiscal status report for local obligors is completed by the local agency with an acquired local obligation, meaning their bonds have been purchased by the proceeds of the authority bonds or received a loan from the proceeds of the authority. To file your yearly fiscal status report online, please go to our website listed on this slide. There you will find links to submit your report. In addition, there are filing instructions that you can refer to. Once you choose the appropriate yearly fiscal status report, either for the authority or local obligor, you will be brought to the login screen, where you'll be asked to provide the Cdiac number of your filing as well as the password. Both the Cdiac number and password were previously provided when the report of proposed issuance was submitted to Cdiac. In addition, you will need to enter the fiscal year for which you are submitting your report. Once logged in, you'll be brought to the online form specific to this issue. First, we will take a look at the yearly fiscal status report online form for authority issuers. The navigation bar to the right, which has the names of the different sections of the report, will move as you scroll up or down so that you can click on any of the fields to take you to that section of the report. For example, if you're in Section 4, Issue Retired, and you want to go back to Section 2 of the form, which is Fund Balance, just click on Fund Balance. The Cdiac number, which is auto-filled, is to the left of the form. This form has 6 sections: General Information, Fund Balance Fiscal Status, Authority Financial Information, Issue Retired, Name of Party completing this form, and Comments. In Section 1, General Information, Section 1A through Section 1E are auto-filled. Sections 1F and 1G are not. You'll be required to complete Section 1F with a yes or no to indicate whether a reserved fund minimum balance is required. Also, if this is your initial filing, complete Section 1G with the issuance cost. If this is not the initial filing, please leave Section 1G blank. In Section 2, Fund Balance Fiscal Status, the fiscal year for which you are filing your Marks-Roos yearly fiscal status report will be auto-filled with the information you put at the login screen. In Section 2A, enter the principal amount of bonds that is outstanding. Section 2B, the total bond reserve fund, will be auto-filled with 0 or an amount. If there is an amount in that section, please indicate the amount of the bond reserve cash or the bond reserve surety bond. Section 2C, the capitalized interest fund, please enter the fund balance. Please note that Sections 2A through 2C all require information as of June 30th of the fiscal year for which you are submitting your yearly fiscal status report. In Section 3, Authority Financial Information, Section 3A requires that you report the ongoing service fees that were paid during the reporting fiscal year. Click on the drop-down button under 1, Type of Service, to choose the appropriate service. A list of services is at the bottom of this slide. Once you choose the service, tab over to 2, Amount of Fees, and enter the amount of the ongoing fees paid. Section 3B, Local Obligor, is where you report the yearly administration fees charged against the local obligor. When filing online, it is imperative that you select Add after each entry. If Add is not selected, then the information does not get uploaded to Cdiac system. Section 3C is where you enter information pertaining to investment contracts, such as the final maturity of the investment contract, other information that's pertinent to the investment contract, amount of fees paid, or interest earnings during the filing fiscal year. Finally, Section 3D is where you indicate whether the agency participates in the county's Teeter plan. A Teeter plan provides California counties with an optional alternative method for allocating delinquent property tax revenues. For counties not under the Teeter plan, interest and penalty are allocated to all agencies based on their pro rata share of the delinquent property tax. Section 4, Issue Retired, requests information on whether the Marks-Roos bond has been retired. If it has not been retired, then all the fields will remain grayed out. If it has been retired, matured, redeemed entirely, or other, you will be able to enter the required information. The maturity date is required if the bond has matured. If the bond was redeemed entirely, please provide the refunding bond title, Cdiac number, and redemption date. The redemption date must be during the reporting period of July 1st through June 30th of the fiscal year you are filing. If the date is after the fiscal year for which you are filing, your submission will be unsuccessful. If you select Other, please explain and enter the effective date. Section 5, Name of party completing this form, requires the name and the contact information of the filer. The date of the report will be autofilled with the filing date. The person listed in Section 5 will receive the courtesy reminder notice next year. Section 6, Comments, is available if there is additional information the filer would like to submit to Cdiac. Next, click on the Validate Form button. A Confirm Data button will appear under the Validate Form button, and you will be given a preview of the information you entered with an option to select Yes to submit the form or No to edit the form. Once you select Yes, your form will be submitted to Cdiac. Lastly, you will have the option to print a PDF of your filing. Now we will take a look at the Yearly Fiscal Status Report online form for local obligors. As with the Authority Issuers form, the navigation bar to the right, which has the names of the different sections of the report, will move as you scroll up or down so that you can click on any of the fields to take you to that section of the report. The Cdiac number, which is auto-filled, is to the left of the form. This form has 6 sections: General Information, Fund Balance Fiscal Status, Delinquent Reporting Information, Retired Issues, Name of Party completing this form, and Comments. In Section 1, General Information, Section 1A through Section 1E, and Sections 1G and 1H are auto-filled. Section 1F, Reserve Fund Minimum Balance Required, is not. You will be required to complete Section 1F with a yes or no to indicate whether reserve fund minimum balance is required. If the reserve is held at the authority level, choose no. If the local obligor funded the reserve from proceeds of the bond issue or loan received, then choose yes. If at the name of issuance, the local obligor was required to contribute to a reserve fund held by the authority, please provide the percentage of the reserve fund contributed. In Section 2, Fund Balance Fiscal Status, the fiscal year for which you are filing your Marks-Roos Yearly Fiscal Status Report will be auto-filled with the information you input at the login screen. In Sections 2A through 2D, please provide the applicable information. Please note that the information to be provided in Section 2 must be as of June 30th of the fiscal year for which you are submitting your yearly fiscal status report. In Section 3, Delinquent Reporting Information requires that you report the delinquency rate for taxes and assessments supporting the local obligations. This should be reported as a percentage of the total applicable tax increment, special tax, or benefit assessment installment due for the year. Indicate the tax collection date. If the agency participates in the county's Teeter plan, the amount of taxes due and the amount of taxes unpaid. If the response to have delinquent taxes been reported is no, then enter June 30th and the fiscal year for which you are filing. Since no delinquency has been reported, enter 0 in Section 3A. Next, indicate whether the agency participates in the county's Teeter plan in Section 3B, and enter 0 for taxes due in 3C and taxes unpaid in 3D. If the response to have delinquent taxes been reported is yes, but information is still pending, then enter June 30th and the fiscal year for which you are filing. Because the delinquency information is unknown at this point, enter 0 in Section 3A. Next, indicate whether the agency participates in the county's Teeter plan in Section 3B, and enter 0 for taxes due in 3C and taxes unpaid in 3D. In Section 6 comments, please indicate that you will contact Cdiac once you receive the information for this section. Once you receive the information, please revise your PDF copy and forward it to the email address that's listed on the screen, and Cdiac will update the record. Section 4, Issue Retired, requests information on whether the Marks-Roos bond has been retired and is no longer reportable. If it has not been retired, then all the fields will remain grayed out. If it has been retired, matured, redeemed entirely, or other, you will be able to enter the required information. The maturity date is required if the bond has matured. If the bond was redeemed entirely, please provide the refunding bond title, Cdiac number, and redemption date. The redemption date must be during the reporting period of July 1st through June 30th of the fiscal year you are filing. If the date is after the fiscal year for which you are filing, your submission will be unsuccessful. If you select Other, please explain and enter the effective date. Section 5, Name of Party completing this form requires the name and the contact information of the filer. The date of report will be auto-filled with the filing date. The person listed in Section 5 will receive the courtesy reminder notice next year. Section 6, Comments, is available if there is additional information the filer would like to submit to Cdiac, such as the pending information from Section 3. Next, click on the Validate Form button. A confirmation data button will appear under the Validate Form button, and you will be given a preview of the information you entered with an option to select Yes to submit the form or No to edit the form. Once you select Yes, your form will be submitted to Cdiac. Lastly, you will have the option to print a PDF of your filing. In Part 2, the Draw on Reserve Default Replenishment Report, we will take a look at the overview of the report, discuss the information collected, and review the online submittal process. A Draw on Reserve Default Replenishment Report must be submitted within 10 days of the reportable event. If an agency issued a Marks-Roos bond, or if an agency's issues were purchased with proceeds of a Marks-Roos bond and either fails to pay principal and interest on any scheduled payment date, or funds are withdrawn from a reserve fund to pay principal and interest. Also, beginning in 2011, an agency can submit this report to Cdiac to voluntarily disclose a replenishment of a previous drawn reserve. However, it is imperative that all authorities and local obligors that issue bonds or receive loans, regardless of when sold, must report a draw on reserve or default. The information collected in the Draw on Reserve Default Replenishment Report is as follows: the authority or local obligations issue name, bond issue title and original date of sale, project name, type of event, whether it's default, draw on reserve, replenishment, date of event, amount of default, draw on reserve or replenishment, and contact information. Issuers have the option to include a statement of explanation containing information pertinent to the draw on reserve fund, default or replenishment, such as how the agency expects to address the issue, how the replenishment was accomplished, etc. To file your default, drawn reserve, or replenishment online, please go to our website listed on this slide. There you will find the link to submit your report. In addition, there are filing instructions that you can refer to. Once you click on the link to submit your report, you will be brought to the login screen where you'll be asked to provide the Cdiac number of your filing as well as a password. Both the Cdiac number and password were previously provided when the report of proposed debt issuance was submitted to Cdiac. In addition, you will need to enter the fiscal year for which you are submitting your report. Once logged in, you'll be brought to the online form. As with the previous forms, the Drawn Reserve Default Replenishment Form has a navigation bar to the right, which has the names of the different sections of the report. The navigation bar will move as you scroll up or down so that you can click on any of the fields to take you to that section of the report. This form has 4 sections: issuer, filing reports, comments, and contact information. The navigation bar shows 5 sections instead of 4, so we will correct that issue. The information fields for the issuer section, Cdiac number, issuer, bond issue title, project name, and actual sale date are all pre-populated. The filing report section requires that you indicate the reason for the filing, a draw on reserve, default or voluntary reporting the replenishment of a draw on reserve. For any of the options, please enter the date the event occurred. If there was a draw on reserve, enter the amount. If there was a default, enter the amount in that section. And if you're voluntarily reporting a replenishment, enter the amount in the amount of replenishment section. If you have any comments, please enter them in the comment section. Contact information section requires the name of the filer and where the filer can be contacted. The date of the report will be autofilled with the filing date. Next, click on the Validate Form button. A Confirm Data button will appear under the Validate Form button, and you will be given a preview of the information you entered with an option to select Yes to submit the form or No to edit the form. Once you select Yes, your form will be submitted to Cdiac. Lastly, you will have the option to print a PDF of your filing. In Part 3, we will address questions that Cdiac staff commonly receive, and we will answer questions that you may have. If you would like to submit a question, please use the question box in your control panel. The questions we frequently receive are on the Teeter plan, reporting period to be used for delinquent parcel information, which is for LOBs only, and what date should be used when an issue is retired. In response on how to respond to the Teeter plan question, based on the Teeter plan bond law of 1994, California Government Code section 54773, a Teeter plan is an alternative method for the distribution of secured property taxes. The Teeter plan question is found in Section 3 of the Yearly Fiscal Status Reports for the authority issue and local obligors. If your county has a Teeter plan, and if your agency participates in the Teeter plan, then you would select Yes. Otherwise, select No. In response to what reporting period local obligors should use for delinquent parcel information in Section 3, the delinquent parcel information must come from the tax roll for that reporting period, meaning the fiscal year for which the yearly fiscal status report is submitted. And in response to our last frequently asked question, what date should be used when an issue is retired? If an issue is marked as retired in Section 4, its redemption maturity date must be during the fiscal year for which the yearly fiscal status report is submitted. If the retired date is in the next fiscal year, then submit a final Marks-Roos yearly fiscal status report for the next fiscal year. Now, we will accept questions from the audience. Please use the question box in your control panel to submit your questions.
Thank you, Nova. Before we get to any additional questions that come in, I would like to remind everyone that the slides for today's presentation are available in PDF form in the handout section of your webinar control panel, as well as posted on our website. And now I would like to take the opportunity to introduce Tanya O'Neill and Catherine Walleen. Both are analysts in the Data Collection and Analysis Unit that assist with the Marks-Roos yearly fiscal status reports. Together, they have over 29 years of experience as a part of Cdiac's team. They are our subject matter experts and will assist with answering technical questions that are submitted. So we've received a number of questions, and we're going to start off with a few and give us some time for others to go ahead and ask questions. We've had a few come in. So to start us off, our first question is, with regard to fees such as rebate and trustee fees, does it matter whether the authority pays for these fees or if the city, as the local obligor, pays for these fees? And I'm going to have Catherine answer this question. Catherine?
Yes, Tara. Most of the time, the authority pays the fees for the local obligor, and the local obligor pays the fees back to the authority.
Our second question is, if the Marks-Roos issue is a lease agreement that is considered debt versus a purchase of a bond issue, is the original loan amount of the principal of the lease payments? Tanya, you want to answer that?
Sure, thank you, Tara. For the authority report, section B, number 3, that's where the principal amount will be the same until it matures. And number 4, administrative fees, is where you would enter your yearly fees, if you have any yearly fees.
Okay, thank you, Tanya. Our third question, I'm going to combine a little bit. The question that came in with registration was, are the fees charged to the local agency the interest paid in the fiscal year versus the total? And then we had a follow-up question. If the authority does not charge the local obligor an administration fee, can this be left blank? Catherine, you want to take that one?
Yes, definitely. We're actually referring to slide 18 in the PDF that's in the handouts. And the administrative fee is what the authority charges to handle the Marks-Roos debt each year. That would be field number 4. We prefer, and we would really appreciate your filling out B, local obligor, whether or not you charge an administration fee, because it gives us a list of all the local obligors that are attached to the authority, and it's part of our record. So please do fill out that information, even if the administration fee charged is 0.
So they should just enter 0?
Yes.
Okay, so don't leave it blank, put a 0.
Yes.
Okay, our next question is, does the original principal amount remain the same each year while only the fees charged to a local obligor in a fiscal year change? I think this is also referring to slide 18. Tanya, you want to take that one?
Sure, thank you. The principal amount will not change for section 3, and the administrative fee will change. Sometimes it will be 0, and sometimes it will have a fee.
Okay, I'm looking at some more of the questions here. All right. Here's another one. On the authority report, does the question pertain to the joint powers authority / local obligor that, let's see, hang on, let me go back. It's section 3D of the authority report. Does the question pertain to the joint powers authority local obligor that participates in the county's Teeter plan, or is it whether the county has a Teeter plan? Catherine, you want to take that one? And then maybe Tanya, if you have anything to add.
Okay, the Teeter plan is a question that is answered. It's dependent on whether or not the county participates in the Teeter plan. And if your county does participate in the Teeter plan, then you always answer yes to it. If for some reason, we have had a few organizations that have opted out of the Teeter plan, then you may change your answer to no, but it's important that if you do that, you send us documentation to support it. Was there something more, Tara?
No, I think that's good. Tanya, do you have anything to add?
No, that was perfect.
Great. Okay, here's another question. How do we know our financing is a Marks-Roos bond required to file the Marks-Roos report? Or are all financing subject to Marks-Roos? Nova, you want to take that one?
Sure. If a Marks-Roos bond was issued and they use the proceeds from that bond issue to acquire or purchase or transfer funds to a local obligor, then they would have to file a yearly fiscal status report.
Okay. Let's see, here is another one. Referring to Section 3, delinquent reporting information, there's no property tax assessment special tax associated with an issue. Debt is paid by leased payment made by a local obligor to the authority. I'm not sure what the question is in there. Does that make sense to either of you, Tanya or Catherine?
Yes, on the local obligor, the Section 3, if it doesn't apply to your agency, then you would just go ahead and select no and put in the fiscal year that you're reporting, June 30th, the fiscal year, and the other fields would be 0.
Great. All right, another question has to do with, does a Cdiac report need to be submitted if there were bond calls for the issue? So I would assume that means, call redemption, something like that. Catherine, you want to answer that?
Okay, so my understanding is that they would have done an optional call date as opposed to waiting for the full maturity date of the issue. So no, it doesn't need to be. If it's a Marks-Roos issue, then that information will become a part of your Marks-Roos yearly fiscal status report that you provide for that year. And you'll fill out the retirement information. If you choose a date for the retirement, it needs to be backed up by your documentation.
That is correct, and I want to piggyback on that. Usually we would go to Emma to get the information that the agency has submitted to Emma as our backup to verify those dates.
And it would be very helpful to piggyback on what Tanya said, if you actually sent that to us at the time of your submission to the Cdiac issuance mailbox. That would save us a lot of time and be very helpful.
Nice. A similar question, if bonds are called early using excess funds, would the correct option in Section 4 be other?
Yes.
Great.
And just put that explanation in other in the comments section.
Oh, here's an interesting question. If the sale date fell before June 30th, but the proceeds have not been received until beginning in July for the closing date, will we still need to report as of June 30th? Whereas their financial report, their CAFR, is reported, it would be reported in the subsequent fiscal year. So.
You would be submitting 2 yearly fiscal status reports. What actually happened in the current fiscal year, and then when it's actually paid off in the following fiscal year.
Okay. If any of the auto-filled or auto-populated information is incorrect, who should they contact?
You can send an email to our Cdiac issuance box. You can send an email to Catherine or myself, and we would prefer you to fill out the PDF copy that you made for yourself and forward that to us, and we'll be more than happy to update the database.
Perfect. Another question, if staff have retired, can they request the Cdiac login information that was previously sent to somebody else?
If it's no longer,
Go ahead. Okay, if the person is no longer on staff with the organization that was submitting the reports, then the issuer can definitely request a name change and provide the name change. Whoever submits the report, they become the person that gets the filing, the courtesy reminder. So if you are aware of the name change prior to August, it's very important to get that information to us at that point. And then afterwards, if you haven't heard from us and you know you're supposed to be filing, definitely contact us and we'll help you figure that out.
They should reference the Cdiac numbers if they can, correct?
Yes, that would be very helpful.
Let's see. If they've received a Cdiac letter that indicates to file a report for both authority and obligor, will both reports need to be filled out?
Yes, if it involves the authority and the local obligor, yes, we will need 2 reports.
Okay, it looks like those are all of the questions that we've received so far. If anyone else has any additional questions, please feel free to email us your questions. And of course, our staff will return with an answer, a reply. And with no other questions left, I'd like to thank Nova, Tanya, and Catherine for putting together this thorough tutorial, and Megan Batty for designing our graphics, and to also thank our Cdiac education team, Karen McMillan, Angel Ayala, for helping to facilitate and streamline this presentation. Great job, ladies. And then we'll do. And before we go, I would like to remind everyone to please stay in contact with Cdiac. Not surprisingly, our education and outreach unit has been really busy putting together topical programming, including our recent webinars on how to use tax and revenue anticipation notes to address a local agency's cash flow problems, and how to navigate investor disclosures during the COVID-19 crisis. In addition, 2 weeks ago, we presented a California Local Public Finance virtual forum in collaboration with the California Society of Municipal Finance Officers, in which the California State Treasurer Fiona Ma discussed and answered questions about the state of public finance in California. Each of these programs is available for replay on Cdiac's website. As for upcoming programming, 2 weeks from now, we will be presenting a 2-part series called Municipal Debt Issuance Fundamentals. The first session is scheduled for Wednesday, September 9th, covering the path to issuance, starting with the decision to issue debt and then follow the process through the sale date. The second session will be presented the following Wednesday on September 16th and is called You Sold Your Bonds, Now What? This second part will focus on what occurs from the time of the sale through the closing and the issuer's responsibility from the day after the closing through the time when the bond is repaid or refunded. So we hope that those of you who may be new to municipal debt issuance will join us for both of those sessions. And for those of you listening, if you have clients that are public agencies or elected officials, please feel free to pass this information along if you think it would be helpful. And if you do plan to join us, please note that you will need to register for each session separately. There are many ways to reach us. Your ideas are always welcome. Please let us know how we can help you. Thank you to all of you who joined us this morning, and we look forward to you joining us for future programming. This ends our broadcast. So long, stay well, and have a great day, everyone.